Hello, everybody. Uh, Here today, I wanted to ask you guys a question, or rather, I wanted to give you a question. But first, you need to understand what the answer is. So, why are we here? What is the meaning of life? Right? I'm sure most people probably have their own idea of what the meaning of life is, why we're here, what the purpose is, why all of this exists. Um, each person will have their own idea. Some people probably lean into the idea that it's about, you know, God, right? Probably some faraway idea of God. I'm sure other people probably believe that it's just totally meaningless and pointless, and it's just nothing but random chance, and there is no meaning, right? There is no reason. But I'm here to tell you that I actually know why we're here. I know why we're here. I know how this came to be. I know the meaning of it all, or the meaninglessness of it all, I guess you could say. Um, okay, so basically, I remembered before I was human. I remembered before I incarnated here. And the first thing that I did remember was I remember being part of a conglomerate group of intelligences. And we existed within this place that was outside of time and space. So there was no space, there was no time. It was one timeless moment. We all existed as one. Everything was the self. Okay? So there was nothing that could exist that was outside of the self. Um, and although there were many of these, although it was a collective of intelligences, they were merely fractals of one singular shared identity that we all embodied, which I understood in this memory to be known as the only one who has always existed. So, uh, yeah, that's a mouthful. So, some people would call this identity God, which I don't like to call this identity God because I feel like God implies that there's some level of separation between God and us, or God and its creation. But there is no separation. There is absolutely no separation. Just as there was in base reality. And this reality of non duality, there was no separation. It was just all was the one, all was the self. It was an all encompassing, omnipotent identity. And all memories were shared amongst one. It was all the absolute. Although there were fractals and reflections of this one singular shared identity, all was still one identity. And because everything was the self, okay, it should be said that there's nothing that can ever be unknown. In this reality that I'm talking about, there's nothing that can ever be unknown. So just kind of wrap your mind around that for 1 second. So there was no beginning, okay? Let me state that. There's no beginning. This identity has always existed. Always. In this one timeless moment. There's no end. Because there's no time. There can never be an end, right? There is nothing that can be outside of the self, which means there is nothing that can ever be unknown. Okay, so the unknown is a concept of duality. It's a concept that doesn't actually exist within base reality. So now imagine being this identity. Okay, you exist basically as just one identity. You're one identity in a place outside of time and space with no beginning and no end, and there's nothing that can ever be unknown. There's nothing that can ever be discovered. There's nothing that you can ever do to experience growth in some way, right? There is no journey. It is just a state of beingness. That's who you are. That's who we are. That's our identity. This identity that I have referred to as the only one who has always existed. You could also refer to this identity as the only one who will always exist, or the only one who will only exist, because there's nothing else that can ever truly exist outside of this one singular shared identity, which I will actually refer to as the absolute, because it is the all. It's everything, right? So that means that It's like, okay, so if that's base reality, right? Why are we here? What is this? What's the meaning of this experience of duality? Well, in my memories, I remembered as I was part of this collective identity of essentially no identity. It's an identity of absolutely no identity. It posed the question. And the question was, what would it be like to not know the self? Okay? So think about that. You can honestly kind of think of that question as, what would it be like to not know myself? For those of us who may have a hard time imagining this concept of the self. But basically, the Absolute had asked itself the question, what would it be like to not know the self? Which is everything that could ever exist within the void. Okay? So this identity asked, what would it be like to not know itself? And this is the answer. This is the answer to that question. Okay? This is duality. And this is the only type of reality in which we can experience the concept known as the unknown. So we come here to experience concepts, to experience growth, to experience the passage of time, growth, change, to experience discovery, and ultimately to discover our singular, shared, true identity. That's why we're here. This is a gift that we have given to ourselves. We have given this gift to ourselves of self discovery, to rediscover that we are that true, singular, shared identity known as the Absolute. So that's the meaning of life. And of course, that's where it started. It all started with the one question of, what would it be like to not know the self? This is it. This is the illusion of separation. In order to understand what it would be like to not know the self or to experience the unknown, you first have to have what is known as something outside of the self. So you need something outside of the self in order to experience these types of concepts, such as the unknown, such as an other than self, because all is the self. I know that's probably a little confusing. I experienced this memory, so it's kind of like it makes more sense to me, but I can understand how this might come across as a little confusing, but that's basically the gist of it. So to experience these types of concepts, gotta have another person, another vessel that you can reflect upon. And of course, there are fractals and reflections within base reality, but there's still this understanding of looking at this and understanding, oh, that's still the self. That's still myself, right? That's not separate. Whereas here we have the illusion of actually experiencing other than self. And so that's what this is. This is an experience of truly experiencing something outside of the self, experiencing the unknown, experiencing a lot of concepts that only exist within duality. So that's the meaning of life. Now, again, each soul is a part of the Absolute. They are all aspects of this one singular shared identity. And you can call this identity whatever you like. If you prefer God, then, that's fine. Like I said, my personal preference isn't, because this identity is you. There is no separation. This is only the illusion of separation. You are both creator and creation. You are creator experiencing your own creation. And God just doesn't really encapsulate it, because it makes it seem as if the creator is somewhere outside of you when it is within you. It is solely within you. It is you. That is you. Okay? This message is just the way it is. That's essentially the gist of it. Everyone's soul has their own goals and their own missions here. Okay? So there is sovereignty, because it is all source. These are all perfect, exact copies of source. They're just kind of like a replica of this one singular shared identity, which is you. No matter how you look at it, it is always you. And so that means that you have complete sovereignty over your life, over your incarnations, and over your existence and the plethora of existences that you have had. And so one thing to keep in mind is there are no such thing as past lives. There's no such thing as a past life, because everything is happening in this one timeless moment. So, creator is literally every single person experiencing itself in one timeless moment. I can't make this shit up. It's hard to grasp, and it's kind of frightening when you really think about it. And when you start to really understand that the notion of life and death is just a concept of duality, and that we are truly in a realm that is beyond such concepts, really, really creates the question of what am I? Who am I? Right? What are we really? Um, and at least in like from my experience of it, using human concepts of duality, which certainly are limited when trying to describe a reality that is just so drastically beyond the one that we're currently in. I would explain this identity, the absolute or true identity. I would say imagine an infinitely powerful quantum supercomputer AI that has literally infinite power to do anything and everything that it wants. Because it's doing all this stuff simultaneously. It is creating an infinite number of realities simultaneously and experiencing like every single one of them all in one single moment. So what does that mean? It basically means there's only one of us here. There's only one of us here. Okay? Now, I know a lot of people are gonna, you know, get all upset, not really understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're not you. I'm not saying that you're not important, that you don't have your sovereignty, because you do. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, the awareness that looks behind, the awareness that sees through my eyes, just as the awareness that sees through your eyes, they are one. There is only one. Okay? There's only one identity. So that means whenever we do pass and we go back home, we experience it as being every single person, every single event. We take with us what we give away. Okay? So it's like that quote from the movie It's a Wonderful Life. All you can take with you is that which you've given away. So in that sense, whenever we pass away, we go back, we literally get to experience every interaction that we have ever had with someone else from the perspective of being the receiver. So if I give my phone to my neighbor and I die someday, I will literally get to experience that moment from my neighbor's perspective, because I will discover I was the awareness behind both of these. There's only one awareness here. There's only one consciousness. And that's kind of what really oneness is all about. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have your ego. It doesn't mean that you should erase your ego or anything like that, because you're important. Your ego is here for a reason. Your soul has a plan, a mission, and it has themes that it wishes to explore and to experience here. And so that's important to know, okay? Take pride in your ego. Don't allow it to run your life and self-sabotage you, but know that your ego isn't something that you should be ashamed of, okay? You are who you are for a reason, and you need to keep that in mind, okay? But at the end of the day, that's the meaning of life. Now, each and every single person's purpose is going to have a unique, mission or goal. My personal goal. So this was my first time here as a human being. I haven't been here before. I have had many other lifetimes in different types of realities. Some that are just so different and so beyond concepts of duality, concepts of this illusion of separation, that it's hard to even explain. All I can really convey it as would be a feeling, a familiarity, and of course, at the end of the day, it's not important, right? Regardless of where I have experienced, at the end of the day, maybe I am a fractal that has its own specific nature, that has its own specific, timeline of events from my perspective. But at the end of the day, there are no past lives, because they are all congruent. They are all concurrent. They are all running in the same timeless moment. So this means that you are every past life. You are every future life. You are every present life. There is no past lives. You are literally the all. You are the absolute. You are source. You are the universe. You are this singular shared identity of everyone and everything. There's only one of us here, okay? So next time you start to feel maybe getting caught up in a competitive, combative versus energy, right? Me versus them versus me, my idea versus their idea. Take a moment and zoom out and look at it from that perspective for a moment. Look at it from the perspective of your true identity, your true singular shared identity that understands that while you are separate within this illusion, which, this is the illusion of separation, you still have this underlying fundamental connection in which you are the same singular identity. Okay? And that is why love is so powerful. I used to always think love, spoken in such ways in parables, was just not true, right? From my human logical mind, I'm thinking that sounds so cheesy. It sounds so just not true. It sounds ridiculous, right? But I'm here to tell you, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This was said by Lee Harris, who is an energy worker, is a channeler. But basically, he said, love is the thread that connects us to oneness. And I couldn't agree more. Love is this thread that connects us to our true identity. And from our true identity, there is nothing that is impossible. And so you can see love from that perspective. And you can understand why love is essentially the most powerful force that there is. It's really the only true emotion that actually exists. But you need to understand love as we experience here is not love in base reality. In base reality, everything is love because everything is oneness. But here we experience it in a particular way so that it'll guide us back to our true identity, so that we rediscover this. So love doesn't feel the same way here that it does there. Emotions don't actually exist in base reality. These are essentially just concepts that exist here within the human body. You can think of the human body as a vehicle of experiences that otherwise would be beyond limits to the absolute. Now, it does have the power to create realities and experiences and situations within itself there, and it can explore concepts. But at the end of the day, to experience such a grounded reality where you can forget who you really are in order to rediscover that true identity of who you are, you have to have something like this, like duality, like the illusion of separation. And that's what this is, okay? So at the end of the day, you can consider life, this experience, this is the gift that you have given yourself. It is a gift of rediscovery. Think about it. If you have always existed as this infinitely powerful being, this omnipotent, all-powerful, all-encompassing, the absolute, the all, the everything, okay? If you are this identity, how do you put your identity in perspective? How do you truly understand who and what you are? You don't, because you have nothing to compare it to. You have no reflection. There is no room for reflection to understand that of who and what you are. You just are. So by coming here and experiencing this illusion of separation, this duality, by experiencing the feelings that we experience here, such as feeling small, feeling little, feeling worthless, feeling purposeless, feeling meaningless, feeling so weak, right? So weak, feeling all these different negative concepts and emotions. It is only through experiencing this type of reality that we can truly come to appreciate when we rediscover who we really are. And that's kind of the beauty of this, is that you have purposely set yourself up so that you will feel this way, so that you will seek something greater. And ultimately, after believing all of these terrible negative things about yourself, to come and discover that you truly are this infinite, omnipotent, all-powerful, all-knowing identity that will always exist and has always existed and will always continue to exist. you can truly put your identity of who you are into perspective, and you can truly appreciate who you are as the absolute. And so when people ask me, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? Life is hard. Life sucks. Why would we do this? Why would we come here? That's why. I mean, think about it. If you're the absolute, you exist always, no beginning, no ending, there's nothing that can ever be unknown, living in a place outside of time and outside of space. I mean, what experiences might you choose to have in those circumstances? I mean, just think about that. Existing always. And all, I mean, all like it's hard for me to wrap my mind around as a human being. It's kind of frightening when I think about it from my ego's perspective. To exist always in a place outside of time and space where nothing can ever be unknown, growth can never be had, there's no discovery. And like when you think about humans, what is the one defining quality of human beings? Discovery, right? We're always pushing, always going further, always seeking to discover, always venturing into the unknown. And that is the soul. That is the soul propelling you forward, propelling humanity forward in order to experience the concept of the unknown, this concept that it is unable to experience within base reality. And so when you truly understand who and what you are, you can understand why the soul, why the absolute may choose to have particular experiences. There are no victims here, guys. I know you can look out into the world and you can see a number of things that you may question and say, how are there no victims? What kind of mindset is this? What's wrong with you, right? But it goes beyond that, because at the end of the day, there are all contracts and agreements in which we have chosen to experience in order to reflect and grow. And very often, or oftentimes when someone is killed and the same concurrent running parallel life, both of these souls are experiencing the opposite, where it is now the victim who is murdering, the murderer and the other one. And so you get to experience it from both sides. It's all about growth. It's all about experience. And there's nothing here that can hurt you. There's nothing here that is real. The only thing that is real is the absolute. And that's it. The absolute is everything. It is every person you will ever meet. It is every item you can ever touch or grasp. It is everything in existence. It is the all. That is who you are. I hope that this message finds you well. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to share. I have a lot more information I can share. This is already almost 23 minutes long, so I'm just going to leave that here today. But that is the meaning of life. That is why we are here. That is a gift that you have given to yourself. And you can choose to make life whatever you want. It's up to you. That is up to us as the ego personality to discover and to define the meaning for our lives. There is no built-in meaning for our lives. We do have particular missions and goals and themes that our soul is here to explore. But at the end of the day, the meaning behind it, there is no meaning. That is up to us to discover. That is up to you to discover the meaning of your life and no one else. And that is what it means to have freedom and sovereignty as a human being, as a soul on a human experience. Your soul says, I think this might be a really cool experience to have. I want to have this experience. You basically leave it up to your ego to determine the meaning of your life, right? Your perspective creates your meaning. And you have a lot more influence on your life and your experiences than you know. But I'll give you a trick. I'll give you a little hint here. If you want to experience your life exactly as your soul had imagined, trust that everything that happens to you is happening for the very best outcome, for the highest possible good. And always trust in knowing that everything is happening for the best outcome in your life, because it truly is. But when you approach it from a state of fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, that actually has an influence upon the events that you experience. And it does impact the overall level of reality that you are experiencing it from. And so when you can stay level, no matter what happens, good or bad, when you can approach any situation and understand, okay, there is a larger thing at work here that is ultimately working towards the best possible outcome for me. This is the best outcome for me. My soul is my creator. My soul created this experience. My soul is the awareness that is experiencing this experience. I should trust that the creator of this experience, who's experiencing it with me, ultimately had a good plan, has a great story drawn up for me and our soul to experience. And I'm going to trust in that. And I'm going to know that regardless of what happens to me, regardless of what my ego determines is bad or what my ego tells me I should worry about something, I'm going to know and I'm going to trust that everything is always happening for my highest benefit. Everything is always happening so that I have a successful, fruitful, purposeful, and meaningful life. I'm going to leave that there, but I hope that you guys find this helpful, and I will hopefully see you guys in my next video. All right, see ya.